One. Hello, everybody. This is Philo, and with me, as always, is Mahaden. And it's been a long time having this stream. So we just wanted to get on with finishing the debate review between Qaiser Ahmed Raja and Harris Sultan. So my big hello to Mahaden. Mahaden, been talking to you after a long time. How have you been?
Yeah, how you doing, Philo? I'm okay. I'm good. It's been a long time since we've touched upon this review, so I think we should get back onto it. We've got quite a bit left, I think.
Yes, quite a bit of it is left, and so before we do this, I would like to see if anybody listens to the stream. Whenever they do, just make sure that they subscribe to it. Most probably, they're already subscribed to it. That's why they're listening to it. And if they haven't, then definitely do. And please do share this stream. It's really necessary because if you share it and we have more listeners, that's going to motivate us to bring more content, much better content. Probably, I hope we are still bringing a pretty decent content, but if you do share it, then we're going to be motivated to keep going, basically. And if you can press that bell button, which is the notifications button, that'll be awesome, basically, so that whenever there's a stream, you should be getting the notification for it so that you can come. And as always, probably we're going to talk for maybe an hour or so. Not sure if that's going to happen today or not, but whenever that happens, maybe we'll open the stream and the callers can join and ask their questions or put their points or put an errata or whatever they want to do, basically talk about mostly these subjects. If they talk about the relevant topics, that's going to be awesome, by the way. So without any further ado, let me present the video screen. Okay. And where were we? We were probably about 57 minutes into this whole video, and we were going through pretty much the last few minutes of Qaiser Ahmed Raja's initial or opening statement. So, Mahaten, let's start it.
Sure.
कहती है उनको भी छोड़ दो, लेकिन ये चीज एक ऐसी है कि इस पे सब अमल करेंगे, अदरवाइज ये होगा कि मुसलमानों को कैदी बना ले, जंग में अगर वो शिकस्त हो जाए मुसलमानों को छोड़ते रहें, तो ये तो नहीं हो सकता। तो वहां पे भी इस्लाम ने उस दौर की सारी चीजें खत्म करते हुए उन मर्दों, उन औरतों को इस्लाम के सिस्टम के अंदर लेके आए, उन औरतों को इज्जत दी जिनको ये बंदियां वगैरह कहते हैं, उनसे शादियां इंकरेज किया। शुरू का दौर, अब ये कहते हैं कि इस्लाम के मैं जो पहले 14 साल, इस्लाम के 14वें साल या 15 साल में चीज हुई, उसमें फाइनल वर्जन बनाऊंगा, ये हारिस सुल्तान की जिम्मेदारी को बताएं कि इस्लाम की फाइनल रूलिंग है। इस्लाम एक प्रोग्रेसिव सिस्टम के तहत वो अपना नाजिल हुआ है, आयत बायत, वाकया वाकया। बहुत से वाकयात आपको मिलेंगे जब औरत पे जुल्म होता था, बहुत से वाकयात आपको मिलेंगे कि जो लोग उस जमाने के कल्चर के हिसाब से करते थे, लेकिन उनकी ट्रेनिंग जारी थी। ड्यूरिंग द ट्रेनिंग अगर कोई चीज हुई है तो आप उसको फाइनल इस्लाम का वचन बना के बता सकते हैं कि ये देखो जी, ये चीज लिखी हुई है यहाँ पे, देखो ये।
All right, Mahathir. So what's going on here is basically his contention is that Islam abolished capturing people and enslaving them. Slavery was abolished in Quran. I think maybe we did touch upon this last time as well, but abolished due to one of the verses in the Quran, 47, Surah 47, verse 4. Release even the captives of war, or something like that, right? And so the problem I have is that verse is a little dubious. Basically, it does not says that you don't have to you have to release them perfectly, right? I mean, it does not say categorically that you have to release them. It says if you can, you should release them, right? So there's already a condition right there in that verse, as far as I remember. But anyways, let me put forth all the other points that he has put.
Okay.
And so and those what he's saying, and what he's saying that Islam did was that tried to integrate those slaves within Muslim society. Basically, marriages were encouraged with those slaves. And also one more point he wants to make is basically he's making here is that Islam was revealed, and quote unquote I'm using revealed, in 23 years, as you know, right? And so the certain rulings were probably it was revealed progressively, and things were
Mm.
banished in a sense progressively. For you can take an example, for example, alcohol, right? There
Mm.
were like 3 or 4 verses where initially alcohol was permitted, then it was not, and something like that, and it was finally banned, right?
Mm.
He's saying, so
Sure.
if you're his point is basically that if you are citing certain hadith which says that this was allowed, or some of the sahabi did something, right? The companions
Mm.
did something uh, with respect to the slavery. That is not the final ruling of Islam. He's asking
Mm.
what was the final ruling of Islam, and his contention is that is banning the slavery pretty much. And that's a really tricky spot to be in, basically, because you're saying your God was not really smart enough to ban it right away. I mean, there were things that got banned right away, and why did
Mm.
it take so much time? And so this question could be asked, and to be a devil's advocate, somebody might answer, "Oh, it was so hard ingrained, that slavery was so hard
Mm.
ingrained
Mm.
in the society that if it were to be banned immediately, then
Yeah.
the whole economy would crumble down or something like that." But that sounds to me to be pretty stupid argument. I mean, if something is bad, yes, it should be banned. What is more important for you? Uh, a setback in terms of economy, or something that you consider to be absolutely wrong? But
Mm.
I would like to listen to your
Even
take
yeah,
on
yeah.
this.
I mean, even taking that into account, that it was meant to be incrementally ceased out of production through incremental changes, and because it was so ingrained, as you said, even taking account of that, there's no reason why that overall view could not be existing right from the beginning, from the first revelation, right? So we're talking about a series of revelations over a long period of time, 3 decades or so, and that could have been revealed at the beginning, that we're phasing it out in a step-by-step manner. Yeah.
Exactly. You
So
yeah, you just captured the gist of it, basically, the meat of
exactly.
it,
So
basically.
exactly. So it seems a bit weird. Think about it this way: if you are like a project manager in a company, and your goal is to see something out, and this happens all the time. Let's say with legislation, like the European Union or even United Kingdom legislation, they would have some sort of law coming on the books, but our policy and the whole point is over a period of time, just like the Paris Agreement. They have to reach a particular, net carbon, whatever emission level. I don't know I'm not fully knowledgeable on this particular science, but you know what I mean. And you have this kind of idea that by this period of time, industry should get their carbon emission levels to this level, zero carbon, whatever. I don't know. Um, that's like a commonsensical thing to do. So
Yeah,
again, this shows this. Yeah, this shows that this is on the theory that this was the ultimate goal of God. It's a bit weird why that's not there right from the beginning, like the overarching purpose right from the beginning. Whereas on the theory that this wasn't the purpose, and maybe there is no such purpose, that for it to slowly phase out, it's more like it was these are just random intervening revelations that you would expect from man, in order to primitive man, to change over time, given the socioeconomic circumstances, given the contextual cultural circumstances, in order to suit one's end,
ex-
political ends. Yeah,
exactly.
you'd expect that, and this idea that this was foreshadowed from the beginning. Um, if it was the case, we should see it from the beginning. So I would say this is another piece of evidence for the theory that this is man-made. Yeah,
Yeah, I mean,
even if
this
we
is
see
this
the
is
goal. Yeah,
this is a
yeah,
very strong evidence for the fact that this text kept changing as
yeah.
the moral zeitgeist kept changing, right? So the later on writers of these hadith or whoever, they found some flaws in or ethical or moral flaws in the earlier scholars' take, right? And they rewrote some certain hadith, kind of, in a sense, not completely contradicting, but kind of revising it for the current zeitgeist that was on vogue at their time, basically. So you can see this progression is happening at a much longer period of time, right? Wherein I'm talking about only about hadith literature, right? What does Quran say? That's a very separatist story, because the story is made that in the Quran was supposedly quote unquote revealed within a 23-year period, and so on and so forth, right? But the problem is you have a different compendium of hadith literature, which was written probably 250 years after the events that they describe, basically, right? And that's a huge problem, basically, because these multiple hadiths are what is like, the Quranic verses are problematic for sure, because there's no direct decree or command to ban it right away, as you said correctly, right? Because if God could have said straight away, okay, the slavery is to be banned, but we are going to phase it out slowly so that it doesn't hurt our economy, right? But that's not the case. But if you go into hadith literature, you find that those companions of the Prophet were still dealing with slaves and all that stuff, right?
In fact, if you just read the Quran on its own, you can actually make a good case for the prohibition of slavery or something. But with the hadiths, you can't. With the hadiths, it's you can make the case that it was optional. The release of captives was optional, not mandatory. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So, I'm not sure where Qaiser is getting the idea that it's a necessity. I think there's some scholars who think that, but it's not like the consensus, is it? As far as I recall, when I researched it, this was not the case, that it was mandatory that you need to release a captive.
No, it is not. Yeah. It is not at all mandatory. Yeah. It is. It is good if you do that, but it is not required, and that's why there is a. See, the thing is, let's see if I can bring. I already pointed out to that verse. Basically, it's.
I was going to say, but I didn't want to insist. Bringing up the verse. I thought maybe we don't need to do that, but if you want to, that'll make a better conversation. The thing is, you have too many instances within the hadiths, and where it is a good deed to release slaves. If you, for example, break your fast or don't fast deliberately, then you are ordered to do one of three things. For example, either feed the poor or donate this money or release a slave, something like that. My memory is kind of hazy, but I remember it was or release a slave, right? Now, if it was mandatory to release a slave, it seems a bit weird, right? That these optional acts, it's not optional acts, but these sort of commands are created as a punitive sanction for breaking your fast. That, if you break your fast, then you must do one of three things, one of them being release a slave. Now, if it was mandatory to release a slave already, then I would imagine that would be the case anyway, right? It would already be the case. It's your duty to release a slave as soon as you can. Right. And so why would it be this extra additional punitive sanction to release a slave in the case where, as a punishment for break and an act of forgiveness as a reparation for breaking your fast? That seems a bit weird to me. So nothing. When you read the entire corpus, all the parts of it doesn't make sense that it's obligatory. Right. The thematic content supports the idea that slavery was acceptable, somewhat discouraged. It was a very good Samaritan thing, a super arrogatory act, I can't even pronounce that properly. Supererogatory Act. Sorry.
Yes,
To release.
supererogatory act. Yes.
Yeah,
Right.
to release the slave. But that's it. It will merit good deeds, and is encouraged and promoted, but it's not a necessity. That's the best I think you can get out of it. But anyway, let's look at this verse here.
Right. So the verse is, as I told you, it's 47, 4, right? Surah 47, verse 4, basically, and it reads. This is one of the translation, Sahih International. So when you meet those who disbelieve, and so there are bracketed parts which are additions by the translator, basically, right? So when you meet those who disbelieve, strike their necks until when you have inflicted slaughter upon them. Then secure their bonds and either confer favor afterwards or ransom them until the war lays down its burden. That is the command. And if Allah had willed, He could have taken vengeance upon them Himself. But He ordered armed struggle to... Okay, I think I am reading the
Wrong one. Yeah.
the wrong one. I think set them free. Where is that?
Did Qaiser mention? Did he mention a verse or?
I think so. Let's not here. Probably. I'm just. Let's stop. Let's stop this for now. Maybe.
Okay, it's fine. It's fine. We can catch up on it later.
Yeah, if he mentions it, then we'll go to it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Nonetheless, I think that that verse is clear that you are. I think what it says, that verse that I was talking about, is somehow the problem was. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yeah, somehow the problem was what I opened wasn't the same verse, but the verse is Surah 47, verse 4, basically, and it goes like this: when you meet the unbelievers, smite their necks until you have crushed them, then bind your captives firmly. Thereafter, you are entitled to set them free, right? Either by an act of grace or against ransom until the war ends. So that is how it goes, basically. But it is not requirement. It is not requirement, right? That's the point we're trying to make, basically, here, right? Anyways, let's move on here.
इस्लाम के फाइनल क्वेश्चन पर किया तो इस्लाम ने ये किया कि उन जंग के कैदियों को सिर्फ गुलामी के इदारे के अंदर लेके आए, बाकी और फिर प्रोग्रेसिव इंटीग्रेशन करके उनको इख्तियार दे दिया कि चाहते हो तो रहो, चाहते हो तो चले जाओ। कुरान में अल्लाह ताला ने चीज वाज़ेह कर दी, शर्तें पूरी करो, चले जाओ। बहुत से
So this is the dishonesty that I think here. What he's saying is, maybe I shouldn't use a strong word like dishonesty, because this could be just an ignorance. He's saying Quran gives the impression that it asks them whether you can stay as slaves or you can go, whatever you want, right? It's your choice. So it's the slave's choice to either stay or to leave, basically. I mean, tell me one thing: who would really want to stay as a slave, right? I mean, this is one of maybe there might be cases somebody thinks that he's too poor to go somewhere and work or earn bread. Maybe they might want to stay. I don't know. I mean, this is not an impossible scenario to imagine. This might happen, but 99% of the times somebody would like to just leave.
So Qaiser has said that the slave can leave on his own volition anytime. Is that what he's trying to suggest? Because I know that's not consistent with Islam.
Right.
Even the most like modernistic progressive interpretation that says you must release slaves, even those, most of them say that once the contract is set, the slave still has to, like a manumission, the slave still has to meet his bond, right? And then if you think he's worthy, or no, there's more conditionals, then if you think he's worthy and safe, and then you can release him. So it's not as though it's a voluntary agreement. If it's a voluntary agreement, it won't be slavery.
Right. Exactly. Right.
Yeah.
It's
by definition a slave. Yeah. By definition, a slave is one who isn't voluntarily there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think these. I mean, this something like. I mean, you can fool somebody who's probably studying in second class or third class, or something like that. I mean, I shouldn't be using those words, but you can't fool somebody who's like who's slightly grown up, right, with these kind of
Yeah.
arguments, right?
लोग हैं जो नहीं दे
You'll be
सकते
surprised, though. You'll be
मुसलमानों से
surprised how many people believe them. Sorry, I was just saying, you'll be surprised by how many people accept and believe them.
Yeah, I mean, this is the
Yeah.
case. I mean, if you look at the comments by our fellow brethren, you'll find that they are hailing, Qaiser Bhai for, putting such strong arguments, right? So, I mean, I'm not surprised that there are plenty of people who will be really, impressed by this argument.
30,000 गुलाम तो उन्होंने आजाद किए, लेकिन वो एक लाइफस्टाइल भी ज़माने में गुलामी का होता था कि पीपल हु डिडंट नो एनीथिंग, उसको कहते थे ठीक है हमें घर की सिक्योरिटी मिल रही है, यहाँ पे जो आप खाते हैं वो हम खाते हैं, गुलाम आप हमें नहीं कह सकते, जो आप पहनते हैं वो हम पहनते हैं, हत्ता के गुलामी में पार्टनरशिप्स भी होती थी, आज़ादी है जिसकी मर्जी अपनी शायद पूरी करे चाहे। इस्लाम ने इस तरह से गुलामी को प्रोग्रेसिवली खत्म किया। और
Now so sneakily he put this argument, then whatever the bond that he fulfills, and then he can leave, but he gets to eat whatever the master is eating. He gets to wear whatever the masters are, wearing, and all that kind of stuff. And this is a blatant lie, by the way. I mean, this is a blatant lie. I mean, how much to the transatlantic slavery the African Muslim majority states have contributed to, basically, right?
I know, yeah.
So this is a blatant lie, pretty much.
So regarding, I know. So regarding that, they could devil's advocate. Well, sorry, not they could. We could to devil's advocate their argument, or to echo their argument. They could simply say that's historical practice, which is different from the Islamic ethos, right? So just because Islamic empires may have deviated away from what was laid down, that doesn't mean Islam allowed or permitted, promoted that stuff, or did not discourage or prohibit it. So they may say, for example,
I see your point. The counter argument to that point is then you'll have to admit without any failure that your God failed to convince a very simple point, that slavery is not to be allowed. I mean, because he failed to, put it in a very simple way, there were people who misinterpreted it and followed it, basically. Or otherwise, you have to say that these are
10 centuries, more than 10, many centuries, how many centuries? Probably 13 centuries or something.
14 centuries, people were following the wrong thing. Then now this one new Nabi comes through and he says, okay, no, guys, you have been doing it all wrong. Sorry, I shouldn't say Nabi, but a new scholar comes in and then he says that, okay, you have been all doing it wrong for past 14 centuries. I got it right. We got it right. We know how it should be done. So that's a trickery, I think.
And I think a lot of people say that historical practice might deviate away from Islam, and that's true, it can do. But I think also his historical practice can help support a particular legal justification. In other words, what I'm trying to say is that if the historicity of a civilization, let's say the government branches, the authority figures, the experts, specialists in the area, all agree to one particular interpretation, right? And there is also legalistic reasoning behind it, where it makes it plausible. Then, if it's supporting one particular perspective, the history becomes evidence that this is what the Hadith meant, this is what the Quran meant, right? Because the fact that the history has unfolded in this way, with many different experts all coming to the same sort of conclusion, suggests that this is the interpretation of Islam that was the correct one. Now, of course, if there's like an obvious, unequivocally, unambiguously bad tangent from the Islamic codes, laws, principles, writings, texts, then indeed you can point out that this civilization went a little bit too far to a tangent. They were misinterpreting the core texts. But
Yeah,
if there's like a bit of blur,
got derailed basically from their
yeah. But
right path.
if there's a bit of blurriness and there's some plausible interpretations, right, and you can make a strong case that this one is right, and then you also see all the civilizations also implementing it, then it probably is right. It acts as support, it's evidential support. What I'm trying to say. And I think a lot of Islamic scholars would possibly agree with that, because I've heard them agree with it. They said that you can't understand the Quran or the Hadiths without the forthcoming civilizations. You need to see their implementations to understand what those little texts mean. Because let's be honest, the Hadiths and the Quran, they're very, very superficial, right? You need the empires after him, the best of followers, the companions, and so on and so forth, the imams and so on. You need their understandings as well,
their
in order to
opinions,
really get
the ijma and all those things are involved,
yes,
basically, right?
Without those things, you're not going to understand it.
Right. Yeah, this is really I mean, this bodes this does not bode so well for this kind of argument that no, it was outlawed, but then probably somebody came and they were practiced because they didn't understand it, they didn't read it, they didn't interpret it properly, and those kind of arguments really fall apart pretty much. All right, let's see what
रखी ये सिर्फ 23 साल के अंदर रखी। एथियस्ट के पास जब भी साल आए, वो भले माओ के पास आए, भले हिटलर के पास आए, भले उसके पॉल पॉट के पास आए, या स्टालिन के पास आए, या कॉमरेड क्रूशेव के पास आए, या चे गुवेरा जैसे दहशतगर्द के पास आए, जब भी इनके पास टाइम आया, इन लोगों ने कत्ल खून के मसाल गर्म किए। लॉ ऑफ सस्पेक्ट्स।
Okay, all of a sudden he has started attacking atheists basically, and what he's saying that all these things were abolished within 23 years, and then these laws came slowly, and then progressively in 3 years the whole whole system was established basically, right? So that's the point. But he says then as soon as these atheists like Pol Pot, Stalin, Khrushchev and all those came, and they started wreaking havoc basically.
1793 जब स्टेट एथिज्म को प्रमोट किया जा रहा था फ्रांस में, तो वो साल 2 साल की बात थी। उसमें जितने कत्ल किए इस्लाम के मजमूई तौर पे, जितना ये 23 साल का एंटरप्राइज है, उसमें इतनी जाने नहीं गई दोनों तरफ।
So wait, he went from centuries of Islam then straight to Pol Pot.
मैं चलता हूं, ये इस्लाम का हो गया मेरा।
Right now the moral crimes of atheists basically, he's
okay,
as you can see on the screen, right? Atheists and moral crimes basically.
Okay.
So now he's turned from his contention is basically he's comparing to, basically he's saying within 23 years of Islam being revealed or being progressively being built up as a system, there were not as many killings as there were within like 2 to 3 years of French Revolution and all those things basically, right? And in the times of Pol Pot or Stalin or Khrushchev, and who else is there? Mao Zedong, Che Guevara, So that's the comparison. That's the comparison he's trying to make basically. So
all right. So let me. Okay.
You want to go ahead first?
No, you go ahead.
So the point I'm trying to make here is that there are a couple of problems in his argument here. First of all, societies were really thin at that point, right? If you compare the population of 7th century Arabia, maybe whatever the location that the Prophet was operating was thinly densed, basically, population-wise, right? Right? So, I mean, if you were to take out a rough estimate of how many people were killed in 23 years of Prophet's life, I've tried to study that, and that number comes to be about 10,000 to 30,000, and it varies between different people. Now imagine this is happening in a society which was already thin. Imagine what is the population of the whole world at that time. Probably not more than 200 million or maybe 300 million, right? So this is a number. We are talking about 7th century. And within that, you're talking about a part of, if the Islamic story is to be assumed to be true, we're talking about a part of Saudi Arabia which is extremely thinly, sparsely populated, basically, right?
Mm-hmm.
So within that, if you're thinking a 10,000 number, now bring that kind of a number to today's world, right? Bring that kind of, mindset in today's world and give all the modern weaponry to those guys.
Yeah.
What would you think? What would you think would
Mm-hmm.
the death toll would be? It would be much higher, much higher, if they were politically motivated to gain
Mm-hmm.
political power and all those things. So comparing these two eras, I don't think it's a smart move. It's a really, really dumb move, to be quite
No.
honest, right? I mean,
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
given supposedly some really crazy Jesus follower had access to AK-47, he would have shot those Jews right then and there, right? I mean, just finished the
Mm-hmm.
whole Jewish population at that time, right? There's no
Yeah.
doubt about it, right? Anyway,
Yeah.
carry on.
Yeah.
Martin, you want to
No,
add
no.
something?
Sorry, go on.
Yeah,
Can you hear
you want
me?
to add something too? Yeah.
All right. Okay. No, I think you covered a lot of the stuff that I wanted to say. You're right that the populations back then were very, very tiny compared to the 20th century, and furthermore, they had very little reach and radius and capacity to engulf huge clusters of the population. So it would be very difficult to kill the amount of people that was killed in the 20th century, given that there was no aircraft, no navy, no weapons of mass destruction, armed weapons, and so on. Long range weapons were very limited. So there's very few things you can do
There
there.
was no TNT. There was no TNT at all. I mean, this is
Yeah,
there were no
exactly. We're talking
grenades
about
and all those things, right? Imagine
yeah.
the kind of destruction those things could have caused. They were using simple swords, arrows, bows, and arrows, basically.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they didn't have the same destructive power as,
Yeah,
and imagine they were fighting for how many ever days, 10 days, 15 days, their battles would go on. The longest battle
absolutely.
were going on for 25, 30 days, right? You wouldn't
Yeah.
need those kind of days. Here the wars are finished in 5 days, 3 days, one day. I mean, just imagine you
Mm-hmm.
have a nuclear weapon, you just drop one nuclear weapon. I'm not advocating for that kind of thing. I'm just saying, what if they had these kind of weaponry, right? And
Yeah,
their motivations
absolutely.
were politically driven. They would have just dropped one single, hey, we wanna. They would have used whatever rocket launchers or what you may have, whatever
Yeah.
they would have wanted to use modern weaponry. And that's a kind of a not a fair comparison. I don't know what kind of a it's a false analogy, I would say. Shall we move on then? Oh, you want to add
Um,
something?
well, yeah. A few more things on that. Regarding the fact that there was more people killed maybe in the 20th century, I don't think that's well established at all, right? And I direct the audience back to the last video that we did, in which I mentioned something called Steven Pinker, Better Angels of Our Nature, in which he documents and shows that indeed, historically, the amount of deaths that occurred from a war, on average, was much higher than after the 20th century. That even taking account of after adjusting for population levels, adjusting for the fact that we have more impactful weaponry, we with modern humans, really, not we as in these are our sides or anything like that, politically affiliated or anything like that, but we as modern humans in the 20th century did less harm, there's been less civilian deaths, less casualties of war, less even combatant deaths per capita when you do a per percentage comparison. So in absolute numbers, there was a higher number of, if you only do absolute number comparison, there's a higher number of deaths. But if you do a per capita adjustment relative to the population size, and in taking account of the weaponry scale in which the range the weaponry can, range of harm the weaponry can inflict, they actually did less damage. And Pinker shows this. Pinker shows that these days at war, there's less than 0.01% of the population that gets harmed. Back then, in terms of violence, there's like a 15% death rate, 15 to 20%, right? And it's hard to believe then, unless we have some sort of counteracting statistics from the time, from the 7th century, 8th century, 9th century of the various different Islamic empires, that actually demonstrates to us, no, that indeed the death rates were much lower, the casualties were much lower per capita, and we don't have anything really significant like that specifically for that part. But all we know, what Pinker has plucked from history, is that it wasn't like that overall. So why would it be any different when it comes to the Islamic empires? We need some good, strong evidence. Yeah, go on.
Sorry, you finish.
No. I was going to say that, so we need some good, strong evidence to suggest that per capita casualties, deaths, civilian deaths were far less than compared to the 20th century, etc.
Right. I agree with you. I wholeheartedly agree with your point of view. I mean, these are nuances that you need to understand. That when you make a statement, you have to really weigh in what you're saying. Basically, I mean, you just don't open your mouth and just say whatever comes to your mind. Basically, I mean, if you're comparing two regimes which are 1400 years apart, you need to do a lot more work to establish those kind of facts that you're just throwing out. Basically, one more thing I want to add to this. I've
got another thing to add as well, but you go ahead.
So we only talked about the 23-year period of Prophet Muhammad, right? Now after his death, Rashidun caliphs started invading Byzantine and Sassanid empires, basically, right? Which is the Persian Empire, basically, right? They started invading and attacking Sassanids and the Byzantines, right? And in the first quarter of 7th century, Byzantines and Sassanids were attacking each other, and they were weakened to beyond repair, basically. This was around the Levant area, pretty much, right? And what happened was, I think, who was it? I think Umar's forces attacked Byzantine, and they were within how many days? I don't know how many days that battle was for, and it was, I think, Battle of Qadisiyah, right? Or Yarmouk. I'm not sure, one of these two battles. And the death toll within that one single military expedition was around, I think, 50,000 or something like that, right? This is from their history books, right? This is from their history books. So these all expeditions, just conquering Byzantine and some parts of Sassania or Persia, the death toll in those battles was close to 50,000 from the other side, right? So you're talking about huge numbers, right? You're not, and these are not corrected to all those things that we have said earlier already, right?
Yeah.
You have something.
Exactly.
Let me just read this comment by Muradaku, right?
Sure.
I'll just read it. QR thinks pointing at a political issue around the world will somehow hide the dirt of Islam, which he claims to be from the divine. Right. I think that's what we are exposing here, basically. The other comment is, that is his whole game. QAR is so dishonest. I'm not quite sure then what to call dishonest or ignorant, I think, or maybe not so well thought out. His opening statement seems to be not so well thought out, or probably is biased. He hasn't done his research with a neutral mindset, just trying to find out truth. I mean, if you were to really trying to find out truth, you will be really balanced in your statements, trying to see what is happening here. I mean, if something like what Pol Pot, Hitler, Stalin, Mao Zedong, che Guevara, or Comrade Khrushchev have done, and that is wrong, I think both Martin and I will openly say that is wrong. We have in past said things like attack on Iraq was completely out of place. It was wrong. Same is true for Afghanistan. I mean, there are nuances to be had. You need to talk about nuances about these things. It's very few things you can talk about in black and white. You most of the times you have to deal within the shades of gray, pretty much. So, I mean, if I'm saying it is wrong, Madin, you seem to have dropped out. Need to. Are you there, Madin?
I'm here. I am here. Yeah.
Okay, for a second it seemed like you dropped out. Anyways, go ahead, please.
Well, let me just say, regarding what Muda Daku says. It seems as though what Carr is doing is he's not realizing that Islam is a form of theism, and atheism has its own forms. So a form of theism, one form of theism is Islam. And as an Islamist or a member of the religion of Islam, we got another comment here.
Right, you finish with Muda Daku, then I'll probably highlight. You want to read that?
I'll finish off first, and then we'll read that. So, so in terms of the Islam is a subcategory of religion of theism, and atheism has its own subcategories, right? So I'm not sure he's making the proper comparison. So if I had said to Qaiser, hey, look at your Christian brethren, look at your Jewish brethren, look at your etc., Buddhist brethren, they're doing this, that he's not going to feel morally responsible. Right. Yeah, he's not going to feel like that he is a supporter, endorser, or complicit in the acts or crimes of those religions. In fact, he may openly support condemnation and criticism that are aimed at those other religions. Because he's not a member of those religions, because he is, although a theist, he is of the Islamic persuasion. He's not of the Christian persuasion, not the Buddhist persuasion, he's not the Jewish persuasion, and so on and so forth. It's the same here. Atheism is a category, and there are subcategories of the atheism in terms of moral philosophy, right? Technically speaking, atheism doesn't have a moral philosophy, but you can be an atheist and hold a particular type of moral philosophy. So the fact that and moral political philosophy as well. So the fact that, let's say, Pol Pot, Mao may have been, let's say, a communist, right? That is, diametrically opposed to another atheist who might be a secular liberal, a person who might be a humanist, might be a social democrat, a proponent of social democracy, a proponent of the American Republic, or something like that. They're different brands, and just as much he might be against Christianity as a theist, as an atheist, for example, I or you or anyone else might be against communism. So it just doesn't make any sense to say, so he's making a category mistake here. It's called a category mistake. He has to pinpoint.
For him, just want to add to your point. For him, once you are an atheist, you have to subscribe to all those philosophies as well, pretty much, right? Once you are an atheist, basically you are supporting Pol Pot, you are supporting Hitler. I don't know why he takes the name of Hitler. Hitler was not an atheist. Hitler was openly a Christian, pretty much, right? Stalin was an atheist. Mao was. These were probably. Stalin had a very interesting, by the way, history. Stalin was raised in a very highly, I think, Catholic setup, or probably one of the Orthodox Russian Protestant setup, or something like that. I fail to remember right now. But his family, he was raised up very, very religious Christian, basically. And he later on adopted atheism. But he may have been inculcated in those religious kind of authoritarian, what do you call, edicts, that he still was in his subconscious, he was carrying out those edicts probably. I don't know. I mean, I can't read his, I'm not a psychologist, I won't read his mind per se. But even if they were atheists, that doesn't imply that atheism was responsible for the crimes they committed, right? I mean, their philosophy was basically that of most of them were influenced by Marxism in some sense or the other, but they
So
were
let's,
at heart
yeah.
communist based. Yes, go ahead.
Yeah. So let's hypothetically just suspend. Let's make a comparison here. So for example, when ISIS, or let's say terrorists, engages in an act of mass atrocity, the vast majority of Muslims would proclaim apologetically, in order to distance themselves from the heinous act, that this was not an act properly inspired by a proper implementation and understanding of Islam. This was an aberration of Islam. This was somebody taking out of context, right? For some reason, then, even though we don't need to do that, because as an atheist, like I said, atheism and theism is the correct comparison. And then under the categories of atheism and theism, you have under theism various different religions,
Islam, Christians,
Islam, Christianity, and under atheism you might have various different atheistic philosophies, right? However difficult that term is, atheistic philosophy, let's just go with it for now, right? You might have various different atheists with different philosophies and so on. But even if you abandon that, well, for some reason these folks like Qaiser does not give atheism the same sort of leniency that he would want probably his Muslim alleged brethren who may commit mass atrocities in the name allegedly of Islam. We could say the same thing. For example, Mao and these were misunderstanding humanism, misunderstanding the proper implementation of communism, right? It wasn't the proper, he's not affording us the same sort of charity. He's just grouping everything together, homogenizing, right, and applying group blame. And furthermore, the issue here is they would also appeal to the more academic apologists to a confluence of factors. For example, terrorism. There's multiple factors that cause terrorism, like foreign policy, right, like disenfranchisement. Poor upbringing, gang culture, all of these other things, a need to belong, mental health problems, and so on and so forth. And that was the explanation behind ISIS, right? The entire phenomena of ISIS, the political ideology that arose, it was just separated and barricaded off from Islam completely. So this was a heinous, a gross exaggeration of Islam. Is taken out of context by people who were youths and stupid, naive dropouts who did not think properly, their personal problems, their mental health illnesses. They were inspired by the politics of the time, and they took it to, used it as an outlet to glorify themselves in violence or whatever, all this stuff. Well, why not apply this sort of multi-causal, multifactorial analysis to these political ideologies? Why wasn't Stalin's situation inspired by a confluence of variables as well, right? Why are you attributing to atheism? You'll think, why is it this atheism the main sole driving force here? Why are we not being academic about that? So you can see the double standards. I'm actually fond of that sort of academic, by the way, of the academic analysis that I was talking about previously. I'm fond of that sort of, I'm completely happy to be engrossed in that level of complication and still find many, many variables that you can attribute back to Islam. But you can't do the same, I would submit, for this atheism stuff, because atheism doesn't have a common scripture, right? Atheism doesn't have a text they can refer to.
Right.
And
right. I think that's sorry, go ahead.
No. Yeah. All right, just one more thing. And furthermore, in terms of causation, that's what we should look for. Are atheists somehow, in terms of in being in society, are they flocking towards Hitler's ideology or Stalin's ideology or communism? No, it seems as though at least atheists born in Europe They don't. Atheism isn't like some sort of getaway drug or some sort of conveyor belt, right, to Stalinism or Maoism. It's not like a predetermined destination for atheists, right? Atheism expresses itself differently in the UK, where they don't become communists, right? Or at least that type of comment. Yeah. So we don't see any evidence of causality, right? So again, so those are things that I would say about that. But yeah, sorry, what were you going to say?
Yeah, I think I lost chain of my thought. I think I was talking to one of the I remembered. I have a comment from Desi New. I think probably a few weeks ago or probably a month ago or so. I think I was talking to Desi again on the same topic, pretty much, right? But let's take a few comments once I get to his comment, and then I'll say what I want to talk about this. We have a comment from Christ brings a sword. Your philosophy will not hold up to the truth of Jesus Christ. Okay. Let's see. Let's bring. Let's show us the empty tomb, basically, or I don't know, whatever was there, right? I mean, let's do a DNA analysis, right, of something, maybe any remnants of those things over there, right? And then we'll see that whether our philosophy holds or true or not. I think that the problem with Christians as well is that, and I'm gonna bash them out as well here, if you allow me, Mahadan, please.
Yeah, go for it.
Right? And they think that there's somehow see there is a contest going on between Christians and Muslims, and the contest is whose book is truer, basically, and the truth value of that book is assessed by how early they are written. Now, in that sense, Christians usually bash Muslims that hey, your books were written like you don't have the earliest Quran. The most complete Quran that you can get is from 10th century. You have few manuscripts from the 7th century. That too are from late 7th century. You have nothing, pretty much. Your hadith literature comes from 250 years after the events they describe and all those things. But when you go to Christian side of it, what do you find? You find the same kind of problem, the same kind. They still adhere to their own philosophy so ardently. But one thing is good with them is they don't claim that it's not a word by word
verbatim.
Verbatim. It's not verbatim word of God, basically, right? So that's one of the things. But if you pick up Matthew, Mark, Luke, they are not original authors, right? Who were these written by? They are named Matthew, Mark, Luke, and all those things. I think I'm going on a tangent, so I'll probably shut it down.
If Christ brings a sword wants to come on maybe later on, or maybe another stream, we can have a conversation, perhaps.
Yeah, we can have a conversation about your scriptures, buddy. I'm open to tackling that. So, what is it? Read, study, and respect the Word of God, King James Bible, cover to cover. This is the only truth in the universe. Let's see. Yeah, you bring it on. We'll be here. If you want to come, talk to us. Definitely. Muradaku, exactly. Yeah, I think responding to our some points. Christians do not hate Jews. Our Savior is a Jew, right? Okay. This is our side by, I think.
Hand pink waving.
All right.
Okay.
This is from Desinio. Jesus Christ, God. Okay, he's responding to the Christian brings the sword. All right.
I see.
And this is mine. All right. What is that last? It's not only atheism that is a crime, but anti-Semitism as well. Those who hate the Jews are doomed. Christ brings a sword. I'm not quite sure what you are pointing to. I think anti-Semitism is definitely is a crime. I don't know if it's a crime as such, but it's a very weak position to hold. I think it's not a position that anybody should hold, because it teaches you to hate somebody that you shouldn't, basically. And anti-Semitism is exactly that, basically. So that's gonna derail us from our current topic, so I'm gonna hold it for now. Madan, you want to add anything to the comments that have been added so far?
No, what I would say is
I'll just one 10 seconds. Desi, if you're listening to it, we're gonna open the stream probably in half an hour or so, quickly. If you want to come, please join. Madan, Desi has his own stream, and pretty good conversations happen over there. He has a decent following, and so but pretty good. He brings pretty awesome topics as well for the audience. Yeah.
Well, that's fine. Yeah. So regarding Chris brings a sword, it's not only atheism that is a crime, but
yes. Here.
So he's. Yeah. Okay. So we got some more comments.
Yes. Yeah. You want to go for it, or you want to respond to?
No, I was just reading it. I just realized it's the same comments. You're flicking through them. I thought it was new comments. But no, I don't think Chris brings a sword is actually engaging or listening to what we're saying. He's off topic. I just want to mention that he's off topic. And although we are giving explanations regarding atheism, crime, how to measure crime, if there's any, sorry, not crime, but the bad philosophies that might have been compatible with it at some point, let's say in the 20th century. I gave an explanation. I gave an elaborate explanation. I don't think Christ brings a sword listen to any of that. So although we like, viewers and audience members, we do like audience members to actually be engaging with our actual points and not just making general remarks that seem a little bit off topic or doesn't seem to engage with our specific points. So is there anything wrong with what we have said, specifically Christ brings a sword? I talked about, that atheism itself doesn't have a particular sort of moral philosophy. And even if you do have a particular moral philosophy, then you have to demonstrate, for example, proponents or adherents allegedly engaging or committing crimes in the name of it, whether it was caused by that. In the same sense, if a Christian or a Muslim commits a crime in the name of God, doesn't necessarily mean it was inspired by Islamic texts, or was the causation, the causation element, was it more multifactorial? Was there a series of different causes? So how do you establish that? So I've given you some objections there that you can't assume atheism is the same thing as communism in the 20th century, because it's not.
Yes,
because you have millions and millions of.
I haven't seen an atheist. I haven't seen any atheist picking up a book in one hand and another hand and saying, "Okay, I'm here to. My book tells me to go and cause mayhem and whatever." Right? I mean, this is kind of become a meme in a sense, pretty much. But
it might not be like that. Yeah, it might not be.
In a sense, it is true as well. I mean, in a very honest sense of discussion, or you can call it philosophical or whatever you may want to call it, but these guys, Pol Pot, Hitler, Stalin, Mao, Comrade Khrushchev, Che Guevara, they were all motivated with a very toxic philosophy, and you can call it whatever you want to call it. I mean, they were communists, and their philosophy was. Yeah, they were driven by a political philosophy, and it was as toxic as Islam is, pretty much.
But that's what I'm saying. Yeah. So when you say, for example, they don't have a book, they technically do have a book. It's just not a book of atheism. It's a book of those political ideologies, right? Just like there's no book of theism.
Right.
There's books of various different theisms, yes. But similarly, there's no book of atheism, but there might be philosophies that are compatible with atheism, which might have values, norms, practices. It might be written in one text. It might not be written at all. It might be like a culture. You know, just like you might think today's secular liberal culture will have certain ideas promulgating, maybe let's say on abortion or feminism, right? And in that sense, it is an ideology, and you can compare, let's say, the fruits of feminism to some extent with the fruits of a particular theism like Christianity or Islam. However, you have to still engage in that sort of complex work that I talked about. You have to demonstrate that there's actually a causal attribution, that you can make a link with the particular ideology, and not just somebody allegedly acting in inspiration of the ideology, because we know many Christian bombers, the KKK, for example. Was that a manifestation of Christianity? Or was the Salem witch trials a manifestation of Christianity? Was slavery in America, early America, a manifestation of Christianity?
Right.
Yeah. Well, I'm pretty sure the particular Christian would say, no, these were aberrations, distortions, and in fact, Christianity helped remove slavery eventually. And yeah, exactly. And we can have the same sort of conversation. We'll say, no, this was an aberration of feminism. This was an aberration of communism, right? Or, since I'm not a communist, I don't care what if it was a manifestation of communism. I, in fact, reject communism. Specifically, me as Mahdeen, I specifically reject communism precisely because communism might have those deadly spells. It might lead to mass violence and disaster precisely because it's not a functioning system, and it leads to famine and disaster and war, you know? So, and therefore, why would I get my hands dirty with communism when I'm not a communist? Just like a Christian won't get his hands dirty with Islam because he's not a Muslim, you know?
Right.
So Christ brings a sword. You need to engage with everything that we're talking about.
Right. Christ brings sword has another comment here. Yeah, you're not interested in the truth. You're only interested in hearing your own voice. All right. What can we say? All right. Okay. You want to say something about that?
I'll just say that Christ brings a sword. We're actually interrupting what you're saying. We're calling you out. We're saying specific things. So you might want to say particular things to rebuke us. And you're saying we're not interested in the truth. Well, how do you know that? Engage with us. We're talking to you. So if we're talking to you, then if you come up with a point or two to show where our reasoning has gone wrong, then we will know exactly what's gone wrong. But we can say the same thing back to you. Technically, it's very easy to say that you're not interested.
I think Mahaden, at this point, I have concluded that he or she is just a troll, pretty much. His or her intention is not a conversation. His or her intention is just to throw out stuff, and it's a shoot and scoot policy, basically. So, anyways, let's move forward. I think this is our friend Cosmic Enquirer's comment. Let me read this. To add to what you guys are saying, one of the names Philo took was Hitler. Hitler wasn't even an atheist; he was a Christian, and I believe he mentioned this in Mein Kampf. Cosmic Bhai, I did mention it earlier when I was talking about him and Hitler. I exactly mentioned the same point that you are mentioning, that Hitler was known to be a Christian, but then there is a little bit of confusion, but quite possibly that it doesn't matter. His ideology was really bad, by the way, right? Christ brings sword has one more comment. I'm not quite sure. Why should we entertain your comments anymore? Atheists can't handle the truth and censorship, and their frontline weapon is their frontline weapon.
Christ brings a sword. It sounds like you're scared. Why don't you come up with a more constructive comment? You're scared of the real truth.
I think if you're honest, you're gonna respond to the points raised by Madan and what he said. If you're not interested in engaging, then there's no point in dropping these comments, right? I mean, these are ad hominems in a sense, basically, what you're doing here, right? Any case, we're gonna move forward.
मैं चलता हूं एथियस्ट और उनके जो मॉरल क्राइम्स हैं, और मैं उम्मीद करूंगा कि हारिस सुल्तान साहब इसमें एग्री करेंगे, इनको मॉरल क्राइम भी कहेंगे, but then I will ask him another question. कम कॉमन एग्जांपल है जिसमें मैं आपका बहुत सा वक्त नहीं लूंगा, माओ, स्टालिन, पोल पोट, चे गुवेरा, ये वो लोग हैं जिन्होंने 100 से 150 मिलियन लोगों को कत्ल किया। एंड आई अंडरस्टैंड कि इन लोगों के पास आजकल के जो एथियस्ट एंड यू एथियस्ट इनके पास है, नहीं वो तो कम्युनिज्म की वजह से कर रहे थे और सोशलिज्म की वजह से कर रहे थे, नहीं कर रहे थे वो कम्युनिज्म और सोशलिज्म की वजह से, और अगर कर भी रहे थे तो इसका मतलब ये नहीं है कि वो जो रिलीजन के लोग हैं उन पर जुल्म नहीं कर रहे थे। कार
So the number he has posed, I'm not quite sure how true these numbers are, Mahadan. He said you can read on the slide. Basically, collectively they killed between 100 million and 150 million people, and maybe these numbers are right. Maybe these numbers are inflated or whatever. Let's assume that these are right numbers, and my point is still the same. These guys committed some crimes, and I'm pretty sure any sane person in today's world is gonna condemn these crimes pretty much, right? I condemn it. I Philo condemn it. Madin, you condemn it. I'm pretty sure about that. Any sane atheist that I talk to condemns these acts pretty much, right? Now we are consistent. Do you condemn the killings that were done by the Prophet in 23 years of his prophethood, pretty much, or the caliphs after those, the 100 years, the bloody history of Islam that lays ahead of you? Some estimates put these numbers in the of the Islamic conquest to be close to 100 million or so. The lower number is at least 30 million or so. Is that true? I don't know. These are numbers that I have read in different books by different scholars, pretty much, right? What do you do with these numbers, right? Let's say these numbers are in the Islamic conquest. These numbers are as low as 1 million. Are we playing a game of numbers? Who killed more is more guilty, or is your claim that even if somebody killed one person for some wrong reason, he is guilty, he is culpable, basically? What do you think? What should your morality tell you, basically, is my question to Qaiser, basically. Are you just gonna go on number because 150 is greater than 10 million? So whoever did 150 is more wrong than who did 10. I think both are wrong on and pretty much on the same level. I mean, there is no differentiation between somebody who killed 1,800 people of Banu Qurayza in the same evening than somebody who killed uh, 10 million in how many ever years or days or whatever, right? It is still wrong. So kind of strikes me. I think I have asked this question to Kaisar Bhai and even Mufti Yasir Nadeem Al-Wajdi, and they have they come up with very strange answer, and it's kind of like it's a cringeworthy answer, to be honest. And I'll tell you, Adin, here, so you can put your thoughts on it. And then the answer is they had a muhaida, or they had a what do you call a muhaida, a pact with them. And then the tribe of Banu Qurayza betrayed that pact, and that's why they had to kill those 800 young boys. Do you know the incidents of Banu Qurayza?
Yeah. Of course, yeah.
So in Banu Qurayza, it was a tribe of, it was one of the tribes of Medina, I think, right? And then they were supposed to not support the Meccans, basically. And it is said that they did, but it is unilaterally said that they did. In what capacity? I'm not quite sure. I don't remember the whole incident as of now. But they did, and probably they did not, but at least before they could do anything, they were sieged for 25 days or something like that. They were surrounded by Muhammad's forces, and after 25 days or certain number of days, they surrendered. Basically, they said, "Okay, no, we don't want to fight. We surrendered." And then they were brought in front of the Prophet, right? And after having surrendered, they were ordered to be killed. 800 young boys and men were ordered to be killed. And so, where is this? I mean, do you not see the disparity between you condemning acts of Pol Pot, Stalin, Mao, or Che Guevara, or Comrade Khrushchev, or whoever you may have, right? and you are saying that you'll condemn those acts, and you'll find those acts as really cringeworthy, not cringeworthy, I mean really, what do you call, abhorring or aberrant acts, right? But you're finding these acts that I'm citing you, where 800 young boys were killed even after they had surrendered. They didn't want to fight. What do you call, when somebody surrenders, what is your first reaction? You say, okay, pardon, since there's no fight, we are pardoning you. But they were still killed, those 800. And how were they killed? Their pants were dropped, seen if they had pubic hair. If they did have pubic hair, they were their heads were chopped. You know that incident, right? I mean,
Yes, yeah.
first thing, how is this justice? I mean, how do you ascertain? Let's say if the justice was to be done by chopping the heads of someone who came to fight with you, right? How would you ascertain that based on who had pubic hairs or not?
Yeah.
That's kind of like strikes me. Anyway, so I wanted to point that. You want to add something to what I just said, or what you heard from Qaiser?
No. I think you said most of the things there. It's hard to justify these things. And regarding what's on the screen, no, I think we've commented mostly on that. Mao, Stalin, Pol Pot. These were manifestations of particular ideologies that different atheists may hold different convictions on, and may hold opposite perspectives on. So you can be an anti-communist, you can be an anti-feminist, you can be a pro-feminist, you can be a socialist, you can be an anti-socialist, you can be a liberal capitalist, you might not be a liberal capitalist, you can be a humanist, or you can be a nihilist. You can believe in authoritarian states. You can believe in extremely reckless, or not reckless, sorry, extremely non-authoritarian states. Very, very liberal states, anarchists without any government. So you can't go from atheism and go down a direct trajectory to any one specific philosophy. So I don't know how you can go from Mao was an atheist and therefore Mao did this, unless somebody can isolate the atheism as a variable first,
as a causing factor, in a sense.
Yeah, the causal variable.
You have to really demonstrate that causality between atheism and then his actions, right? I mean, unless you can show that, I mean, that still remains to be a.
But for atheism, Mao would not have developed that sort of communistic theory. But for his atheism, but for his atheism, Mao's communism would have been far more humanistic. But for and you might be able to do that. For example, it could be something that atheism did make a contribution to, like the idea that there is there should be no religion, or it's entirely materialistic and nothing matters. You could potentially do that, but my point is the evidence isn't there to show how much of a percent, in terms of a percentage factor, that psychological state of atheism had influenced this ideology, and not other stuff. It could have been a minor cause, it could have been a more than minor cause, it could have been a moderate cause, it could have been a substantial cause, or it could have been the primary cause. I don't know, but nothing suggests. There's no evidence suggesting this, and that's what we need to do when we, as academics, we have to figure these out with precision. And so this is just a flaky sort of common trope that people throw out. Mao was, no, in terms of academic hygiene, it does not satisfy any of the high standards we need in order to establish anything. Just like most smart Muslims would hold people to account when they say jihad was the motivation behind this particular terrorist attack. Well, no, there's academics working on it who try to isolate the variable of Islam to find out how much of a contribution it had to a particular violent act. And that's a good way to go about it. I'm happy to have it to that level of sophistication. But if it's going to be to that level of sophistication for Islam, then it should be for this as well.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. All right, let's move on. I think we have had quite a few more comments from Christ Brings Sword. I think at this point, I think we should stop hitting at him, basically.
मार्क्स जो कि कम्युनिज्म का जो
Yeah,
pioneer है उसका, वो ये
do you want to hide his comments because they just seem to be, at this moment it's like hate speech. If we said the same thing, about Christians, it would be hate speech.
Right, exactly.
Like all Christians are going to burn in my garden.
Right.
If I said that, that would be a ruthless statement, right?
Yes. I think somebody might just.
Yeah, and we're just expected to just view the comment and keep it there.
Somebody might just come and then just clip this part and then post it. Let's see what atheists are saying. Hate speech, you bloody.
दोनों इकट्ठे स्टार्ट होते हैं, उनके नजदीक ये इनसेपरेबल है। एकेडमिक एविडेंस मौजूदा दुनिया की यूनिवर्सिटीज में पढ़ाया जाता है कि कम्युनिज्म को ये कहा जाता है कि ये एथियस्ट का मजहब है जिसके लिए इतने लोग कत्ल किए गए, और अगर ये सारा का सारा सोशलिज्म की वजह से हो रहा था तो
So what his point is that communism is said to be. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Yes, communism is said to be the religion of atheists. How is that so? How is that for you are having a cup of tea in the morning, and how's that for a commentary?
Exactly.
on record
I mean, do we need to spell that out? What's wrong with that? I mean, I'm not sure we need to spell it out.
I don't think so. Yeah, but go ahead.
Okay. Well, communism isn't. No, I don't get that. I don't understand. Communism is a serious political ideology, and you need to have foreknowledge about states, about economies, about the proletariat, the bourgeoisie. You need some introduction maybe to Marx. How could you go from, how could that be the ideology of atheists? You know what I mean? That doesn't make any sense. For example, let's say a 15-year-old atheist, is he a Karl Marx advocate? You need to have knowledge about political ideology. So this is this is diabolically insane of a point, It's so astonishing that people can say these things. I would imagine nobody in an atheistic society in the West is likely to be a strong communist. Maybe a small minority of people, maybe very academic people within the academic community. But the average person isn't a communist, and there's no definitional within the definition of atheism. Atheism just deals with just for people who, lay people who may not be aware of this. I'm going to just spout something very simple that everyone talks about. But atheism simply deals with the question of the existence of God, whether God exists or God doesn't exist. And atheism usually answers with either there is no evidence for God, for the proposition God exists, or God does not exist. It's a rejection that God exists entirely. It is the proposition, is upholding the proposition God does not exist. It's one of those things. That's it. And in terms of political ideology, in terms of how you believe the political system should be built up, the electoral system should be designed, what sort of parliamentary or presidential system you should have, how should the economy be organized, should the state control the means of production, distribution, and exchange, or should that be owned by private property, private ownership, right? Capitalism,
There's countless number of things that you can mention about that. What would entail someone to subscribe to a communist philosophy, basically. I mean, it's
exactly
ideology, basically, right? And
So
I think he's not taking it seriously. To be, I mean, his understanding is that once you are an atheist, you'll have to cling to all those layers of political sugar that you get in Islam or Christianity, right? I mean, it is clear that Islam is not just a religion. Islam is a system. It's called a deen for no reason, right? And what do you mean by a deen? Deen is a system, basically, because it's not only about Allah. and following Allah, or praying to Allah, right? All those things. It comes with a whole political ideology. The Khilafat, the Caliphate, and all those things. You have to it's a whole code of your life, basically. I mean, it governs almost all aspects of your life, right? And so what he's thinking, and that's what I think, that's what my understanding is, what he's thinking is, once you get rid of that what do you call, those layers of religion or the system, deen, you have to adopt something new in place of it. And that's what he's thinking, that once you become an atheist, you have to adopt to some political ideology and those economic things, and then the only option you remained with is communism. I think that's what he's thinking, probably.
Yeah, but
I can't speak for him.
he's confusing the world. He's confusing the world of philosophical concepts and human beings, right? Human beings, in terms of philosophical concept, if you're a Muslim, you technically, ideally, have to follow, let's say, the 5 pillars of Islam. But human beings may not do that. You might be born a Muslim and have no idea of the 5 pillars. Yeah, you might have some idea. You might not be very knowledgeable. You might not be a mu'min, basically. You might be an ideal standard bearer of the faith, the ideal noble follower of the faith. You might just be a 2 times a day namaz praying Muslim who doesn't read the Quran that much, half-assed, half-bothered, and it can be like that. And so he's confusing the world of philosophy with the world of human beings. Human beings don't need to have any sort of consistent philosophy. Human beings can have a mismatch of contradictory philosophies, and atheists, just like any other human being, are like that. Just like you have Muslims who are bad performers of their faith, who are so-called Muslims, but they have liberal views, secular views, some religious views. Sometimes they abstain from the faith. Atheists are like that as well. And atheists, you can be born to an atheist family and just have no real coherent, cogent, intellectually well thought out philosophical view, political view, etc.
Right.
So it's confusing that, and furthermore, the other point that I forgot now what I was going to say. In terms of, I think his idea is atheists will have to endorse a particular view. I think that contradicts something that he said earlier in the debate, that atheism can't have a moral view, right? Or something like that. Am I correct to remember that? Yeah, something like that. I think earlier in the debate, since we're doing these streams very slowly, we probably reviewed this maybe 4 weeks ago. He actually said atheists can't have a moral framework.
Right.
So what is he doing here? So is he talking about, although atheism in principle can't have a moral framework, atheists may behaviorally still have a moral framework, but they can't philosophically justify it. But if he's talking about that, then he needs to take into account that human beings can hold a whole set of views, and including no views, right? If the average person down the street, the average atheist born, let's say, in Sweden or Norway, may not have sophisticated political views. If you ask them who did you vote for, they may not vote for anybody. They don't know. Just like the average Muslim may not know much about Islamic history. The average Muslim child, unless they've gone to a masjid and studied and they become some sort of learned individual, they're not going to know too much. It's the same thing. So I'm not sure what he means then if he's trying to say that atheists must be communists. That's like an empirical claim, and we know that's not the case. If it's a philosophical claim that atheism philosophically leads to communism, that's merely a conceptual one. Then that contradicts what he said earlier in the debate, which he said atheism philosophically leads to nihilism. Right? Atheism can't have any moral framework. But now he's saying atheism philosophically has to lead to communism. So it's contradiction. So it's either he's contradicting himself, or he's just empirically wrong about the variety of human psychologies that human beings can have, about philosophies and so on.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Mahadin, what I have done is I have, since we are already 1 hour 20 mark, I have made our link public. So whoever wants to join can come, while we can keep working on our, review. and if somebody
Yeah.
joins, then we will talk to that person. So we have a few people listening. Anybody who wants to join, talk to us. Christ brings us word. If you want to join and talk to us, please do come in. It's gonna be a cordial discussion, and we are not
I hope
hateful.
so.
I don't think so. Any one of us is hateful. Our contention is about we criticize ideologies, and we might be wrong in our criticism as well. I mean, if you have really strong points to counter our arguments, we'll have to accept. We have no choice but to accept your counter arguments if they are, they're strong enough. So if you want, please do join. Anybody else who wants to join and come talk to us, please do. We'll be happy to talk to you. But in the meanwhile, we'll carry on with the.
को रशिया का आखिरी क्रिश्चियन दिखाऊंगा, आखिरी कैपिटलिस्ट नहीं, या आखिरी वो इंसान नहीं जो सोशलिज्म से एग्री नहीं करता, आखिरी एथियस्ट दिखाऊंगा। 50,000 चर्चेस से शुरू में 5,000 नहीं, या आखिरी वो कोट बात है कॉमरेड ट्रूशेफ की कि बहुत जल्द मैं आप दुनिया को रशिया का आखिरी क्रिश्चियन दिखाऊंगा, आखिरी कैपिटलिस्ट नहीं, या आखिरी वो इंसान नहीं जो सोशलिज्म से एग्री नहीं करता, आखिरी एथियस्ट दिखाऊंगा। 50,000 चर्चेस से शुरू में 5,000 के लगभग रह गए।
All right, this I need to highlight this, Madan. Now he's quoting Comrade Khrushchev for a quote which says that I think what did he say? I'll show you the Russia's last Christian. So I'm translating it roughly, basically. Okay. Something like he's quoting Khrushchev's quote that he said somewhere, soon I'll show you Russia's last Christian. And it is a known fact that within Khrushchev's reign and Stalin's reign, a lot of churches were shut down, pretty much, right? That is a fact, right? But now this quote doesn't exist, pretty much. I mean, I tried to search this quote, but I couldn't find this quote, pretty much, right? And what I found was a book written on by some William Taubman, which was published in 1987. And in this book, this quote is attributed to Nikita Khrushchev, basically, right? And he hasn't. This person who has written this book, William Taubman, hasn't given any reference to this. And later on, he retracted that statement that he has evidence for it, basically. So this person who wrote this book and this quote, he retracted it. So this is a flimsy, this is a really flimsy research on someone who goes on to really big platform and goes on calls himself an academician, basically, right? I mean,
I thought this person, I think this Qaiser person said he was like a captain of the debate team.
Yes, I mean, apparently.
Because I've been on the debate team myself, and this is not like I would have expected better from somebody who's debated, you know.
I mean, for you, Mohadin, I would say openly, nobody can doubt. I mean, you might be. It is possible that you might be rusty, but nobody can doubt that, right? For Qaiser, it seems like this is really flimsy research, basically. I mean, if you want to research something, bring out the real sources, man. At least you can do this much, right? I mean, if you're calling your team captain of your university or something debating team, you have to do better than this, man.
Yeah, exactly.
60 लाख तक के फिगर्स मिलते हैं यूक्रेन में जिन लोगों ने भूख से मार दिए इस सिस्टम को, अपने एथियस्टिक सिस्टम को इंपोज करते हुए। लीग ऑफ मिलिटेंट एथियस्ट्स, नॉट कम्युनिस्ट और सोशलिस्ट, 1925 में बनी, जिसने कौन-कौन सा जुर्म नहीं किया मजहबी लोगों पे। ये मोरालिटी है इनकी। मैं हारिस सुल्तान से पूछना चाहूंगा कि ये लोग क्यों ठीक थे या गलत थे? दोनों मैं पूछना चाहूंगा किस बेस पे आप उन्हें ठीक या गलत कहते हैं। फिर हमारे पास ये न्यू एथियज्म आ जाता है।
Right, he's still bashing on those 60 million people by atheistic philosophy, whatever. I mean, we have already covered it. I think we have beaten it quite a few times already. Cosmic Bhai is here. Cosmic Bhai, how are you?
Hello.
Hey guys, I think you guys should continue a bit with the video, and then I'll share something.
You're gonna be here, right? You're not leaving, right?
I think I'll be here for an additional 30 minutes. Carry on, guys.
Okay.
And then pitch in.
Let's finish this, right?
Okay.
How you doing, by the way, Cosmic? Otherwise, good.
Doing well. Yeah, I hope you guys are doing well too.
Yeah,
Yeah, we are.
we're doing a stream after a long time, so we thought it's a must now. So it's
No,
been
it's
quite a
awesome.
few.
I think you guys should probably, when you're done with the entire debate review, you should clip parts of it, especially the thing that you just mentioned where he used a source that's flimsy. He's done
Right.
that before with scientific studies and whatnot, but we can go on that at a later time. But good find, good find. I think you should clip parts of this for sure.
Right. I think this is like unbecoming of someone of his stature, pretty much, right? I mean, I do to be quite honest, I do respect him a lot, but if you are at that pedestal where you appeal to a huge number of people, and if honesty is your kind of you want to get to truth, you should at least research these things, at least put these more effort into these researches. Any case, right?
Yeah, he deleted my comment, by the way, on his channel. He clipped a video of Harris where Harris says that if you want to learn philosophy, a good intro point would be ChatGPT. Just ask it about philosophical concepts and start there, right? He didn't dissuade people from reading books. He just said that this was a good starting point, and he made fun of Harris for saying this. I commented underneath his short that Harris is just saying this is a good intro because he knows most people would not have the time to read books on philosophy. But of course, you would be against this because your audience won't read the book, so they'll just defer their thinking to you, which is why you see ChatGPT as a threat. He deleted that comment. Interestingly enough, I thought because he used to speak up against comment deletion and stuff, right? But he deleted mine,
Yeah, the vision
and
shut.
I found that quite funny.
No, I shut the vision, and I'm going to fall all of Islam. 10,000 Muslims will fall dead at my feet at the fraud shrine of the frog-head Allah you call Mecca. You're worshiping
Hello.
Satan, and you know it. So you're going to
Excuse
fall,
me.
and you're going to lose everything you have. And
Do
10,000 Islams
you
are going to
have
fall dead at my
do you,
feet.
do you have
I'm Wesley
anything?
Curry, the Jew with the dove of Jesus.
All
Have a
right.
good
Do you
day.
have?
Get it
Yeah,
on
go
me.
to a psychiatrist. I think you may need to go to a psychiatrist, by the way, my friend.
Right. I think you have
I think
any
you're going to the wrong
anything of.
stream.
Yes, he got onto the wrong stream, I think. He didn't have anything of substance to talk about.
Mhm. So
Yeah.
this Wesley Carey person, we've seen him a few times, right? And
Yes.
he's been on our stream a few times, and he's allegedly listened to our stream a few times. And here he comes on for the first time, unprompted, with a video. And what is he thinking? We are Muslims, right? Did he? I think he.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know what he's thinking. I think our stream is pretty clear, right?
Yeah.
I think our stream is pretty clear what we talk about. Yeah. I don't know.
it's really
He's
funny finding these somewhat mentally abnormal people, right? It's not funny in a laughable sense, but it's shocking when it happens because this particular person, he's written something now, but they seem to be kind of detached from what's going on.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
maybe Wesley, you need to see some psychiatrist, as Madan said, because you're probably not on with reality. I think we are here. We do criticize philosophies, and that includes Islam, that includes Christianity, that includes almost all the other bad philosophies or ideologies, basically. So I'm not quite sure your point of coming on the stream and bashing up something like this. Not quite sure. I mean, probably I was taken aback by your right.
I
It
just
just
find it
happened
funny.
so quickly. Just yeah, it was funny, to be
I
honest.
didn't expect it. When that video popped up,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
thought you were playing a video for a minute. I was like, all right, is he playing a video? Why is Philo playing a video? Why is it on the left and not on the right? Then I thought, wait, that's a person. And why is he? Why did he feel the need to come on and make a video? Sorry, in person to explain this. Oh, here we go.
Right.
There's another thing.
There's a message from him.
Hmm.
Jesus appeared in the real Holy Spirit a sixth time to all on earth for those whose name is not on the book of life, and did not tell. Jesus said, "No time to talk." Allah.
His name is Wesley Curry II.
Uh,
he's very ancient. It just seems to be I don't know. I don't know how to talk to some of these people. You know?
Yes, I think better ignored.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on with the I think
है जो एक नई बीमारी है। अब न्यू एथिज्म में हमारे पास क्या है? 4 इसके बड़े प्रोपोनेंट्स हैं, सैम हैरिस है, डेनियल डेनिस है, अपना रिचर्ड डॉकिंस है और क्रिस्टोफर हिचन्स है। ये सैम हैरिस की स्टेटमेंट्स दो मैंने आपके सामने रखी हैं कि वी विल कंटिन्यू टू स्पिल ब्लड इन एसेंशियली व्हाट इज वॉर ऑफ आइडियाज, कि नजरियात की जंग में हम खून बहाते रहेंगे। ये वो लोग हैं जो अमेरिकन या एडवेंचरिज्म है जिसके तहत मिलियंस के हिसाब से लोगों को मारा गया। अफगानिस्तान में जो शहादतें हुई हैं, यूनाइटेड नेशंस की अपनी रिपोर्ट के मुताबिक 45% उसमें बच्चे थे और न्यू एथियस्ट उसको सपोर्ट कर रहे थे।
all right, Madan, you heard this? You read this? He's talking about the new atheism now, right? The Khrushchevs and the Pol Pots and the Hitlers, and now they're slightly on the back barracks right now, and now the talk is about the new atheists basically, and he's talking about that famous quote of Sam Harris, right? You remember that famous quote?
Oh, I remember this very much because I remember debating this quite a lot.
We will continue to spill blood in essentially the war of ideas, right?
Yeah.
And by the way, to
So this
tell you a
funny
thing. Now, this quote that he's talking about, Sam Harris, is originally attributed to Nikita Khrushchev, basically. You remember the earlier quote that I told you that was not Nikita Khrushchev's? This is Nikita Khrushchev's quote originally, basically. And it was taken by Sam Harris. So Nikita Khrushchev quoted this between when the Cold War was going on between the Soviet Union and the United States of America, right? And this was sometime around 1950s to 1960s, something like that. Mid 1950s to mid 1960s. He said it in a speech to the Communist Party Congress in 1961 or something like that, right? And then his point was basically then the Khrushchev's point was that at that time the Soviet Union needed to keep fighting against the West, basically, both militarily and ideologically, basically. And what those ideologies were, well, I think we don't need to go into those data. But coming back to Sam Harris, right? So Sam Harris probably wrote this in one of his blog posts, and later on he clarified. So this quote is again kind of taken out of context here. So you want to add something to it? Basically, I'm pretty much done with my point. But if you want, I mean, if I can post a link to where Sam Harris is.
Yeah, go for it. I think you should. I think we should do that because I remember in 2015 when somebody had posted a meme about it, where that Sam Harris quote, some propositions are so dangerous that it may be even ethical to kill people for believing them. It was submerged in a broader context in which it was a military warfare or something, and that it might be warranted to attack and kill combatants of war, right? So this, and his views were somewhat aligned with international law. So in the actual context, it was continuing to talk about, if I recall from memory, military combat, military conquest in the context of war, people who are bent on the destruction of civilization, who are willing to wage war and attack. These are the people which Sam Harris's ideas are directed at. The scope of his comments are specifically about that. Not just generally holding militant views, or not just generally holding the views of a particular ideology or Islam, or etc., and so on. But here we go. So you've got a context.
Right. So this is the context he is given. See, I don't agree with Sam Harris's whole take on this thing, pretty much. So first thing first, I'm not trying to defend him, but I'm just trying to illustrate that his broader context was missed.
Yeah. You could just say the following. You could just say that irrespective of how, even if in the context of which he said it, there might be some issues. The quote that Qaiser is quoting is a misquotation or liable to misinterpretation. right? Because it's without the broader context. And Qaiser is therefore shamefully committing his own a heinous act of misinterpretation that he himself would condemn against his opponents who might take the Quran out of context, the Hadith out of context. You know,
Exactly.
he's basically misquoting, misinterpreting, and leaving out the broader context of a atheist's author's book. That line on its own just sounds too vague, and it seems to be saying that people should be just killed for holding an idea. But when you see it in this broader context, you see that it's far more nuanced, right? So Qaiser is being a little bit mischievous there. Yeah.
Yeah, just want to point it out to anybody who wants to see the link to it. Should search on the mechanics of defamation. Sam Harris. I think they should be able to find this page. Anyways, this is not our primary thing, so we'll switch back on to our.
Philo, do you remember in 2015, I actually had like a written debate with somebody. I'm obviously not going to name anybody, but it was online in one of our groups. It was a very long time ago.
Okay, I think you'll have to remind me a little bit more.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, it was regarding that particular quote. I remember having a debate with somebody a very long time ago. Not yourself, Philo, but yeah. Anyway,
I'm forgotten, probably, yes.
Yeah.
I think I can't. You can't, since you can't take all the names. It's gonna be hard. Yeah. But anyways, let's move on with Madin. Shall we talk with Cosmic first?
Yeah, let's go for it, because he's been patiently waiting, and he said he's going to be here for 30 minutes.
It's okay. Just I think go on with the video. There's one particular point of contention I may have with Madin, but we can discuss it in a couple minutes. Let's go forward with the video a bit.
Okay.
Since we got detracted with the Sam Harris thing, right?
Yeah, go ahead. Why don't you just bring it up now?
Okay, sure. I think Qaiser mentioned this specific thing where he said that atheism leads to nihilism, and then followed it up with atheism leads to communism, right? And you had a problem with that. I don't see that as a contradiction, right? Because nihilism is more a belief of things having value or not. Like ultimately, there may not be a purpose, but communism has more to do with like distribution of resources and economic model and stuff. Can't you be both? Like I'm sure he couldn't establish the connection between atheism and those two philosophies, but even if he couldn't do that, you can be an atheist, communist, nihilist. Can you not? I think you can.
Yeah, you can be, because it depends on what sort of school of nihilism you are, really. And some nihilists would say that you can't, because there is no truth in any sort of political philosophy. And if you're that type of nihilist who denies truth value to these things, that nothing means anything, some of them would say that it's incompatible then to say there is a purpose to life. And if you are a type of person who believes in like a Marxist purpose to life, and at the same time simultaneously think that there is no purpose to life because you're a nihilist, then there is a contradiction. But not all nihilists are like that. So I grant that part. The thing about why this is problematic for Qaiser is what I'm trying to say is that his point is philosophically inconsistent, right? I'm not saying that people can't hold contradictory views. For example, you can hold a contradictory view. You can be a Muslim who believes you should not kill any innocent person, and at the same time you can have a belief that you should kill this innocent person. Now there's an intellectual philosophical inconsistency there, but you can obviously have a brain state that holds that sort of behavioral model consistently in the world. It's just that it's logically inconsistent. So something can be philosophically or logically inconsistent, but you can still hold it psychologically in your brain. With Qaiser, what I'm saying is that I think, because it's kind of vague what he meant, but initially he said atheists can't have any morality. He can't philosophically or logically justify a morality. But then he later on says that atheists has to be communists. Now, if we go with the school of nihilists that deny meaning, and that's usually the predominant thing, there is no meaning, you can't have a morality, then you can't have a moral philosophy, whether that's communism or not. consistently. Of course, behaviorally, you can do that. Of course, you can be a Marxist, and you can even be a communist and claim to be a capitalist at the same time. You can have this kind of mishmash, but it's philosophically inconsistent. And I would say it's philosophically inconsistent to believe that you can't have a morality at the same time have a morality. If Qaiser is right that atheists can't have a moral framework, later when he says atheists have to be a communist, he's contradicting himself.
Oh, okay. Thanks for clarifying. That's a bit of quite a bit of nuance to it, and yeah, thanks for that.
Yeah, no, I mean, if it's not clear, you can ask me if you've got further follow-up questions. If anything else you want to ask, I don't.
No, that's about it for now. But yeah, I'll have more thoughts as we go on.
Okay, all right.
Let's then move on with the video a little bit. Cosmic, you can stay, right? You have time, right? And
we'll I have about 15 minutes left. Yep.
Yeah. I think we'll finish the stream within 15 minutes as well. Basically, I had told Madin that we are not going to do a stream for more than half an hour. But I knew once we get on to a topic, it's really hard to leave in between. Basically,
so, yeah.
I think both of us, myself and Mahadin, both of us love to talk.
Yeah.
But yeah, let's get on to it.
बच्चों पे बमबारी की जा रही है और न्यू एथियस्ट उसको सपोर्ट कर रही है। ये है एथियस्टिक मोरालिटी जो हारिस सुल्तान साहब ने आपको नहीं बताई। अब आपको वजह पता चल रही होगी कि क्यों नहीं बताई, ये मेरा काम है बताना। उसके बाद वो फरमाते हैं जनाब कि some propositions are so dangerous that may even be ethical to kill for people in believing them। पूरी दुनिया में ह्यूमन राइट्स होते हैं कि फ्रीडम ऑफ थॉट और कॉन्शियस होता है कि आप किसी चीज पे बिलीव कर सकते हैं, उसकी मैनिफेस्टेशन पे प्रॉब्लम होता है, वो एक और चीज है, बिलीव आप किसी चीज पे रख सकते हैं। लेकिन इनका सैम हैरिस ये कहता है कि कुछ प्रोपोजिशंस, कुछ आइडियाज, कुछ नजरियात इतने खतरनाक हैं कि उन पे यकीन रखने वालों का भी कत्ल का जवाब पैदा किया जा सकता है। नो वंडर ये लोग कत्लो खून से भरे हुए हैं। नो वंडर कि ये सिर्फ इस्लाम पे एतराज करता है कि कोई हमारी चादर ना उठा ले। मैं हूं, हमारी ईमान यूनियन है, बाकी लोग हैं, ये चादरें हम उठाते रहेंगे। और आज हारिस सुल्तान ने चीजें
I think this is the same point that we have been talking about Sam Harris's that quote, and I mean that quote is probably very disturbing. Can you hear me, Madin?
Yeah.
That quote is like really, in a sense, it appears really disturbing. By the way, to be honest, right? And the context is there, but he's really harping on it right now. I mean that's what the ideology that all atheists hold, pretty much, in a sense, right?
Also, additionally, sorry, just a sec. It shouldn't take long. The connection he's drawing between the deaths that happened in Afghanistan and Iraq and the other areas, right? He's drawing a conclusion that it's because of the ideas of atheists. But I don't think anyone went into Afghanistan or Iraq because of what Sam Harris said. The people who were in charge of making decisions like that would be predominantly Christians. It wouldn't be atheists. So I don't even see how he's attributing all of those deaths to atheism instead of Christianity or theism, right? Because they didn't listen to the new atheists to go into those countries in the first place.
Right. But Cosmic, the problem here is he's drawing a foreseeable future kind of from here, and that's what his point is. And he might well be right to take that kind of conclusion that if somebody like some prominent atheist kind of comes up with those kind of ideas, and you are absolutely right that whatever happened in Iraq and Afghanistan was pretty much a fault of I wouldn't say a fault, but misstep taken by a predominantly Christian government, right? I mean, if you can say so, right? But these quotes are kind of tantamount to showing them that somebody holding these kind of ideologies might take these kind of steps again in the future. That's what the point.
I would respectfully disagree that I don't think he's mentioning a far off future here, because at the end when he concludes, right, he says इसीलिए इन लोगों के हाथ इतना कत्ल हुआ है ना, paraphrasing, right? But that's what he says. He's specifically mentioning the deaths that have already happened.
I think I'm making his case stronger than
it
is. And
I think you're steelmanning him with the most.
Worst case for ourselves, for atheists, basically. And you're right. He did not say that somebody would. I'm just taking that to be an extreme for kind of being an a devil's advocate for ourselves, basically. In this case, I'm trying to be. But you're right. He didn't say that somebody could have that kind of a, in future somebody would do that, but he's saying that they did it because of this kind of ideology. So he's in a sense, you are right that he's wrong in that basically.
और एथियस्टिक मोरालिटी की राहत बतानी है, जाती ओपिनियन में मुझे कोई इंटरेस्ट नहीं है। उसके बाद जनाब क्रिस्टोफर हिचन्स फरमाते हैं इराक वॉर के बारे में कि आई थिंक इट्स अस प्लस 82nd एयरबोर्न एंड 101st, ये उनकी बटालियंस का जिक्र कर रहे हैं, हु आर द रियल फाइटर्स फॉर सेकुलरिज्म एट द मोमेंट, द वंस हु आर रियली फाइटिंग द मेन एनिमी। आई थिंक इट इज अस.
So this is one of Christopher Hitchens' quotes, which I think he did say that, and at the time as well, I was really taken aback by this quote, and I pretty much didn't agree. To be honest, at that point when this all was happening, I pretty much hadn't made up my mind as to what was right or what was wrong. It seemed like that the 9/11 perpetrators somehow needed to be brought to justice, but then the whole war in Afghanistan turned out to be a debacle, and that's my personal opinion, and talking to both of you basically, and telling that to our audience as well, that the Afghanistan war was a debacle. The same is true with Iraq war as well, because there were no WMDs to be found over there, and so but those kind of, it took some time to come to terms with those realities basically. Initially I'm not quite sure what Chris Hitchens' take was later on. He did say this, and when did he say? I'm not quite sure. Anything you guys want to add to it?
Well, I don't know why Christopher Hitchens' political views necessarily matters here, because we don't really care about the impact of new atheism per se, unless
he's not our prophet. He's not our prophet.
Exactly, and well, here's the thing. Let me try and steel man his argument in a way that he probably isn't doing. So atheists exist, populations of atheists exist, just like Muslims exist, populations of Muslims exist. Muslims have followers, and Muslims follow those followers, and atheists have followers, and atheists follow those followers. So even though he's not a official prophet from a official scripture, he's a de facto, he could be considered de facto de facto prophet equivalent. Let's say, think of it as an influential person, de facto authoritative figure. And so Christopher Hitchens writes a book, and in that book he publishes it and disseminates it to his audience, and very many of them might be atheists, and they're his followers, and so in this sort of setup is very equivalent to a religious system. So he's trying to make a claim that here's like the leader of or one of the leaders of atheism quoting this. The issue is, because it goes back to everything that we said. Atheism is a category; it's a primary category, not a subcategory, right? So unlike theism is religion. What a specific religion like Islam is a subcategory, and theism is the primary category. Right. Atheism is the primary category, and we're comparing the primary category, atheism, with a subcategory, Islam. Right. And we know the category of theism has many subcategories, and similarly the category of atheism has many categories. One of these subcategories might be this, and this is like a category within a category, is Christopher Hitchens, and you may be a follower of him or not. I don't really care. I mean, I personally don't read a lot of Hitchens. I did very, very many years ago, and there's nothing. He's one interesting individual, is a journalist. That's it. I've not sanctified him. We don't,
Even my take on him is, and I could be wrong, and maybe my take is going to differ from both of you. Basically, is I found him to be a good rhetorician, but I found him to be philosophically lacking in a sense. So I wasn't really drawn towards him, because I found deeper arguments more appealing in a sense. I found Dan Dennett to be more, persuasive in some sense than, to some extent, Sam Harris. Initially, I found him better equipped in in dealing with arguments. But Hitchens and Dawkins, they were more of rhetoricians and whatever you may have, right? They had more influence in a sense, basically.
Yeah. The other thing I would say is that when it comes to Islam, the books are codified, they're organized, they're systematized, they're compiled together in one place to some extent. Obviously, it's a bit more scattered than what I'm talking about, but indeed there is some organization. When it comes to atheism, you don't have that sort of convergence or common consensus. Yeah, it depends on where you're born in the globe and so on. Depends on the society that you're in. If you're born in China, you might be an atheistic communist. If you're born in Scandinavia, you might be an atheistic social democratic individual. Born in the UK, you might be slightly more liberal, slightly more pro-capitalist than that which is found in Scandinavia. So,
right.
What is he talking? He needs to be more narrowly tailored in his discussion and conversation here, in his criticism, right? Because when we can hold Islam to account, we can appeal to his particular scriptures that there's no disagreement over, that he is a defender of. He might disagree with the interpretation, he might fight over the meanings, but that is his book, right?
Exactly.
When it comes to an atheism, he needs to zoom in and hone into a particular school that the particular atheist belongs to, and then say, look, this is in your book. But if it's not in your book, then what the heck are you talking about? I might be in full disagreement with that particular group as much as you are, Qaiser. I might be against Christopher Hitchens, I might be against Sam Harris, I might be against the atheistic communists, Stalin, I might be against Scandinavia, and I actually am. I'm, for example, I'm not a communist. I probably disagree with a lot of. I agree with a lot of Norwegian policy. I disagree with a lot of Norwegian policy as well. I also disagree with a lot of Christopher Hitchens. So we don't have that sort of commonality. We don't have this common faction or common book or scripture or ideology or church. And that's not because we don't have leaders. We can't have ideologies. It's because this is a category mistake that Qaiser is making. Let's call it the category fallacy. He's comparing a specific branch of theism with the entirety of atheism. He needs to compare a specific branch of theism with a specific branch of atheism. But he's comparing the specific branch of theism, which is Islam, with the entirety of atheism, therefore is shooting at everybody. It's like me going into a debate with an Islamic person and attacking Christianity, attacking Judaism, attacking Buddhism. Look, this is what theism produces. Well, I'm not. He'll be like, maybe theism does produce that, but my theism doesn't. Right? My theism, Islam, is not accountable for the Buddhist sins, the Christian sins, and so on. Well, if he can say that, then he needs to understand that's what we can. That's exactly what I'm saying here. That's exactly what Harris should be saying. Why are you, talking about all of these other stuff? All of these, you don't even know whether I subscribe to these schools. This is a category fallacy, a category mistake. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
All right, Cosmic, you want to add something to it, or shall we move?
Just about Hitchens, right? I actually hold Hitchens in high regard. I think he had a very notable place in I think making people atheists, because he was like unapologetic. He was quick-witted. He was very well versed with historical incidents, right, which he would bring up in the moment and then strike like extremely well to expose the absurdities of religion, right? So he's very important. But I do agree that there are philosophical problems that he had, especially when, for example, Frank Turek debated with him and asked him, without God, how do you ground morality, right? He kind of did not want to engage with that particular question. So there were definitely issues in his knowledge of philosophy, which I agree. Like, everyone cannot be an expert at anything, but he was a great speaker. And a lot of what he said was
about Hitchens. What is true is eloquence and rhetoric. If you add these two, if you mix these two, and then you have it. Sorry,
so
go
he
ahead.
was, I think, he was great in that sense. But specific to the Iraq war, and he's changed his mind on more than a couple things in his life. For example, I think he used to think that waterboarding was not really torture until he went ahead and got waterboarded himself, and quickly realized how miserable that experience was, and he changed his views. Right, there's a video of this on. Also changed, so it's not really as static as Qaiser makes it out to be. But of course, the most important thing is that Hitchens is not our prophet. We don't have to agree with everything that he said, and atheists have criticized him. There's a great video by Cosmic Skeptic on the philosophical deficiencies of Christopher Hitchens. He made that a couple years ago. You guys could watch it. This is actually a pro of atheists, right? We don't have any prophets. We're free to criticize each other, and we do.
Exactly. I mean, it's to a certain extent what we think. It boils down to a certain level of subjectiveness, right? And within that framework, we are acting as subjective agents in bringing our own, understanding of somebody's take on certain topics. So, yeah, we are free to do that. We don't have to religiously pick up a book and say everything written in there has to be believed. Basically, if you don't believe even a single word of it, you are out of the fold of that particular philosophy or something like that. So, yeah.
What I would also say, if I was Harris, if I was in Harris's position in the debate, I would say everything that I already have said regarding the category mistakes. But in addition to that, then I would throw out a counter argument against Qaiser, saying that he's obviously picking on a very narrow range of cases of individuals, and it's almost anecdotal and selective. He's cherry picking, right? And then I will actually say, let's look at the actual data, and let's look at an actual methodologically systematic study of the effects of secularism. And I would also refer back to Steven Pinker. Steven Pinker is a psychologist, but his brilliant book on Enlightenment Now, he's actually referring to political scientists, he's referring to data, he's referring to experts in different fields to substantiate it. So in other words, he's using experts in various different fields to make the case. And he demonstrates, now he shows quite strongly, I would say, that the Enlightenment values of secularism, reason, democracy, and so on, science, and so on, correlates with an moral improvement in many different dimensions. So his entire book is focused on trying to demonstrate the thesis of Enlightenment values, of the values of I mentioned, reason, science, democracy. It correlates, not only correlates, but suggests that there's some causative link between those values and the improvement of human welfare across a range of variables. And this is not anecdotal, it's not cherry-picked. That's what the systematic data suggests. That, and although his book has been criticized, I would say about 70% to 80% of scholars generally agree that because the book is designed in a way to be somewhat flawless in the regard that you can't really go wrong with science, reason. And Pinker is ingenious in this sense, in the sense that whenever, let's say, the Nazi Germany, you could say Nazi Germany was to some extent secular or something, whatever. They weren't, but let's say it was the case. You can always say they misapplied the concept of democracy, misapplied the concept of reason, they misapplied the concept of science. So Pinker has a very strong hand in proving his case, because it's hard to, whenever it goes wrong, you can always say it was a deviation from reason, it was a deviation from science, and the proper implementation of reason, and it's true, if somebody's reasoning properly, ideally, you will lead to the ideal conclusion, right? If a government or a group of people is reasoning effectively, you will not commit the heinous crimes. If somebody's adhering to the values of democracy or equality for everyone, you won't commit the heinous crimes. And Pinker shows that wherever those values flourished, there was peace and tranquility. And with the increase of those values, we see a decrease in violence, increase in human welfare, and so on. So I would then wager to Qaiser that, look, what do you answer to that? Because those are secular, non-religious values. So that's a better comparison than you just comparing it to one or two atheists here and there.
Right.
Yeah,
exactly. What I wanted to say earlier, you said that number is acceptance rate is 70 to 80%. People generally agree with that book, right? And my what I want to say about that is the generally accepted rate for clinical trials is about 83-84% as well. When the double
Yeah.
blind trials happen. So that's a pretty good number, by the way, 80% acceptance, and that means that that book is very well thought out and very well researched book, basically.
Yeah. I mean, if anybody wants to see Steven Pinker's, you can go on YouTube and look for Enlightenment Now. He does various interviews.
I think
BBC Hard.
we showed it in our
Yeah.
last stream. I think
Yeah.
last stream,
Yeah.
basically,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, he does many very interviews as well, defending the core of his thesis with hard questions on BBC Hard Questions, on Al Jazeera with Mehdi Hassan, and they take him to task and they press with hard questions. And I do still think, although he was on the defensive a little bit, because I think Mehdi Hassan specifically can talk over the guest, as the host, and I think he kind of overwhelmed Pinker a little bit, didn't let him finish, was a bit savvy with that, clever and savvy to do that. But Pinker still, if you listen to him carefully, he still won the debate, technically speaking, intellectually. Mehdi looked stronger because he just looked like he manipulated the entire thing. But Pinker, when you listen to his comments, if you transcribe the debate, put it on paper, you'll see Pinker had the more well-substantiated points, well-thought-out points, logical points, backed-up points, especially if he was allowed to finish it. He never got to finish a lot of his responses. So I think he defends the thesis very well. Wherever secular values, that is non-religious values, of specifically democracy, equality, flourish, we end up seeing a lot more tranquility, peace, harmony, improvement in several dimensions of human metrics of human welfare, etc. And Pinker shows this, and with data, and that is the case. That would be a much better case to tackle than what Qaiser is doing here.
Right. Let's move forward. Madin?
प्लस जो उन्होंने फौजी आगे बताए कि हम और ये जो फौजी हैं इस वक्त लड़ रहे हैं, असल में सेकुलरिज्म की जंग ये लड़ रहे हैं, ये इराक वॉर पे कहा, और जो कहा कि जो मेन एनिमी को अपना कर रहे हैं, इराक वॉर एक इलीगल वॉर थी. जस्टिस टॉम बिंगम चीफ जस्टिस यूके के रहे, फोर्थ हो गए हैं. रूल ऑफ लॉ में उन्होंने टेररिज्म को डिफाइन किया है कि ऐसी जंग जो रूल ऑफ लॉ, ऐसा वायलेंस जो रूल ऑफ लॉ से बाहर हो, उसको टेररिज्म कहा जाता है. और उसी किताब में वो लिखते हैं कि जो इराक वॉर है ये.
So now Qaiser bhai has given a new definition for terrorism. You want to listen to it?
ऐसा वायलेंस जो रूल ऑफ लॉ से बाहर हो, उसको टेररिज्म कहा जाता है. और
So any violence that is out of the rule of law is called terrorism, is the definition that he's given.
Right.
And he's saying that based on that definition, the Iraq war was illegal. I think I would say you didn't even need to go into that definition and then coming to that conclusion that Iraq war was illegal.
उसी किताब में वो लिखते हैं कि जो इराक वॉर है ये रूल ऑफ लॉ से बाहर थी, यानी कि वो इंप्लाइडली कह रहे थे कि ये हमने दहशतगर्दी की है वेस्टर्न सिविलाइजेशन ने. और ये इनका क्रिस्टोफर हिचिंस, जो हमारे जो जितने भी देसी एथियस्ट हैं उन सबका ये किबला काबा है, वो ये कह रहा है कि हम और हमारे फौजी मिलकर ये काम कर रहे हैं. 10 लाख से ज्यादा लोगों की वहां पे कत्ल हुआ है इस जंग की वजह से. औरतों को जो वहां पे बेवा किया गया.
So again, I think we have already talked about this. Cosmic, you were saying that did he retract this statement, or what were you saying? Sorry, I probably am.
I believe I don't remember the exact statements, but I think he was less enthusiastic about about the US's in Iraq later in life. But I'd have to dig up exactly if he wrote any pieces on this or whatnot. But yeah, I believe he wasn't as enthusiastic about this anymore. Just one more thing, guys, because I have to go, unfortunately, but I'll just leave you guys with this. So after this debate, right, I've been keeping a track of subscriber counts, because if you see, this debate has about 150,000 views. And the guy who uploaded this debate, he's a neutral guy. He makes journalistic videos on different people, right? So
Abbas
people,
Haider, right?
Yeah, Abbas Haider. And a lot of people watching this debate were not originally involved in these sorts of debates, right? Because it's very much out of the blue for Abbas's channel to host something like this. While I believe Qaiser strongly believes he won this debate, and of course Harris also believes he strongly won this debate, right? If Qaiser's arguments were as convincing as if you see the comment section, Muslims beating their chest about him winning this debate, right? You would expect his subscriber count to skyrocket after this, right? I think
Right,
he's this debate was done a month and a half ago, and I think
something like that. I
when
think,
the
6 weeks,
when the
6-7 weeks
debate
at
happened,
least.
I think Qaiser had about 41K or 42K subscribers. I think it's gone up to like 46 or 47, so not a big change. He was already steadily rising, right? So I don't
Right,
think even the Muslims who are so sure, like he's the people commenting underneath who believe Qaiser won, he's preaching to the converted kind of, right? Those are the people who would have said Qaiser won
preaching
regardless of
to the
his
choir
performance.
is what.
Yeah, preaching to the choir.
Yeah.
Because otherwise you would have seen like a lot of stream of new Muslim subscribers or neutrals towards his platform, but it hasn't really bumped up as much as you'd expect, right? You'd expect him to get 60, 70K by now. So I think
Right.
even the Muslim side believes he did not do as good of a job as people claim, but
I
they
think.
don't. Yeah.
Sorry, Cosmic. I mean, you want to finish? Please finish. I had
Yeah,
a
I
thought in
think
there.
that's about it. I might
Yeah,
have some more things to share, but I'll be part of this stream for a couple extra minutes or whatever you say. I will hear it,
Just
but I
one
have to go,
short thing.
guys.
One
Okay.
short thing I wanted to mention.
Okay, sure.
Madin, probably a week or week and a half back, sent me a message, and he was talking this. He was saying the same thing, that even he was reading some of the comments on some place, I don't know where exactly, but he was saying the same thing, that even Muslims are now considering some of these things to be really abhorrent, basically. And exactly that's the point. Within probably even Abbas's stream, if you read the comments, you'll find quite a bit of comments where even the Muslims are saying no. Some of the behavior that was shown in the debate and even after that is unbecoming of the debaters, basically. So see, people don't change overnight, basically. Ideas don't hit immediately. Some of them do, but not all the ideas hit you immediately. Some of them sit in your mind, in your head, and when you ponder over them over time, they kind of stick to you. They kind of become a thorn in your whatever, right? What's the saying? How does it go? Thorn in your neck or whatever, I don't know. But
Thorn in your side, I think, probably.
right.
Yeah.
So that's how it happens, and people are slowly going to realize how weak these arguments are, basically, right? They don't make sense. I mean, you're criticizing a whole philosophy or ideology based on certain people who did something based on certain political agenda and all those things. And so this is like, uh, you can evoke emotions. What Qaiser is trying to do is to evoke emotions within certain group of people, and and people do act on emotions, basically, at times, and most of the times they do act on that. But when they calm down, think through it rationally, they'll realize, oh, okay, I was just emotional and considering those facts as something very strong, or that those arguments as very strong. But when I think through rationally, those are not as strong as an argument, basically. Anyways, I think I digressed a little bit.
Yeah. Just one more. Can you, Philo, would you be interested in like 2 or 3 weeks probably? There's a particular debate that happened on Qaiser's stream. You remember Punk Punjabi, right?
Right.
Yeah, there's a particular conversation that they had. I think it's 1 hour long, but I think it's absolute gold. It demonstrates how Qaiser argues, right? I think we could probably, if you have the time, right, in Hindi or Urdu, because I think both of us speak it reasonably well, right? We could cover that video and label it something like the most embarrassing debate Qaiser has had, or something like that, right? Because there's a lot of stuff in there. Because I recently got recommended that video, rewatched it. Someone clipped it, right? I think.
Sure.
Yeah,
I'll be
so
definitely willing to.
could you give your email in the comments? It
Sure.
could be, and
Uh,
I'll hit you up
I'll
because yeah,
I'll post it in private chat, right?
cool.
You are you let me just do this, okay?
Yeah. Anyways, bye guys. I hope to see you guys next time.
All right. See you later.
All right, Cosmic. Here's my email, okay? All right, Cosmic, you have my email. Give me a thumbs up in the comments.
Got it. Yeah. Bye, man. Bye, guys.
All right. Oh, so you were okay. All right.
Bye
Talk to you
bye.
later. Nice talking to you as always. All right, Martin, shall we finish it or shall we close it? I think we still have a little bit more. Probably we have what 7 more minutes.
Yeah, I think let's just do the 7 more minutes and then finish it. Yeah.
Let's hurry up.
Yeah.
I mean,
Let me
7 minutes. 7 minutes here, right? In this, I don't know how much we are going to talk
Yeah.
about it.
Yeah.
We took about 7 minutes for 2.5 hours.
So let's speed this part up. Yeah. Okay.
Let's do another one, right? Later on, and then do right.
Go on.
Up to you.
Sorry.
You wanna? What are you saying? Sorry.
Do you want to do the 7 minutes or?
I think that 7 minutes is going to take. See, we covered.
All right. You're saying it's
we
going to
covered
take a
about
while.
7 minutes for
Yeah.
2 hours.
All
Like,
right.
we
All right.
covered
Let's
7 minutes
leave
in
it
2
for
hours.
another day. Let's leave it for another day then. Yeah.
Yeah, those 7 minutes would be good for 2 hours. Another 2 hours.
Okay. Okay.
Right.
All right then.
Anything more to add? You
No,
want to add?
not from my end. Not from my end.
Okay. Would you be? Are you okay doing that stream that Cosmic is saying? You'll be willing to do it?
I didn't fully understand exactly what he wanted to do. What he wanted to just do it in Hindi, or I'm not sure what he meant.
So he's there is a video. There is a conversation between Harris Sultan, one of the debaters over here, and another person, and they talked about the psyche of. They probably talked something about Qaiser Ahmed Raja, or the way he conducts carries on debates, basically. So what I'll do is I'll see to it what it is, and I'll probably write it back to you and see if we want to do it. And
Okay.
if not, then maybe we'll do it a quick analysis with Cosmic, right? Right.
Okay. Yeah. All
Just
right.
a short, not as long as this one, right? Not as long as this one.
Sure.
We'll just
Sure.
pick a few really meaty points, and then maybe we'll
Yeah.
talk about.
Yeah. All right then. I'm gonna head out then.
All right, same here,
So,
and thanks everybody for listening. Whoever was
yeah.
here
Thank you.
and contributed to listening, and I'm gonna say the same thing again, to share our channel, these videos, spread it. Unless until you spread it, you won't be motivated enough to keep talking about these really interesting topics. I think these are really interesting topics, and the kind of points that Mahadan brings to these debates, I think puts like char chand laga deta hai. Have you heard of this
No.
idiom?
What is that?
I don't know what it is called in English. I mean, it's something, cherry on top, basically, something like that, basically.
I see.
Your arguments, your arguments are like cherry on top, basically. So that's what it is.
Yeah, thank
So
you.
until somebody spreads the word, subscribes, and presses that notification bell, it's going to be awesome if you do that. And thanks everybody. If somebody is already there, wants to join, there is still time. We can probably give 4 or 5 minutes. I see there are a few folks listening. If you guys want to join, you're welcome. Your time begins now. There is have I put a link here? I have a link here, right? So there is a link. Anybody wants to join? No. If not, then we're gonna close out in 3, 2, 1. Madan, nice talking to you as always. Nice talking to you
too.
carry on with this, right?
Sure.
Talk to you later.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye for now. Bye-bye.